Hello everyone, welcome back, and I'm sorry for being so MIA last week. It has been a month. A lot is going on behind the scenes at work, in my personal life. It's been a time. But not to fret, I am back, and I am back with my new series called What If? In this series, I want to explore what if certain specific plot points in movies or big franchises hadn't happened. And this week, of course, I wanted to focus on Star Wars. And so this week I posted in my community tab what you guys would like to see if I did a what if video on Star Wars plot points, and you responded. Thank you very much. So if you aren't subscribed yet but also have lots of ideas, please feel free to either comment them down below or subscribe and go to my community tab and voice your opinions there. Anyway, someone wrote what if Luke had died on Bespin, and while that isn't what I'm going to exactly cover today, it did get me thinking about the Bespin kind of story arc in general. What would happen if something relating to Bespin had gone differently? And that's how I got to the following. What if the Millennium Falcon's hyperdrive had worked perfectly fine on Hoth? In the original timeline of The Empire Strikes Back, the failure of the hyperdrive forces Han Solo to kind of play a game of hide and seek in the asteroid field, which inevitably leads him to make the decision to go to Cloud City on Bespin, famously into the hands of Lando Calrissian and into the trap of Darth Vader. But in our new timeline, Han Solo pulls the lever and magically the stars stretch out and they zoom into hyperspace. No asteroids, no never tell me the odds, just a clean escape to the Rebel rendezvous. In the movie that we know, the hyperdrive doesn't just not work, it dictates everything that happens afterwards if you look at it. Because the Falcon can't jump, Han Solo's forced to make a series of decisions that lead to really the entire storyline of the rest of the movie. As I mentioned, it first forces the asteroid chase, which while it's a super cool set piece of action, it's a lot more than just that. It's where Han and Leia's romance truly starts to solidify. It's the us against the world moment. And without that breakdown, they don't have those quiet, tense moments in the belly of the slug. Secondly, it's giving Darth Vader a trail to follow, right? If the Falcon had jumped, Vader wouldn't have had these crumbs to follow, and he would have lost them immediately, but instead, he hires bounty hunters and tracks them to Bespin. He gets there first, lays the trap, and voila. Also, I swear that when I was young, I saw a meme of the trap that Vader lays out for them, but it had been edited so it looked like a birthday party, and I just for the life of me can't find it. So if anyone else is able to find it, maybe I made it up. Maybe it's not real. But I swear it existed. Back to the story. Vader doesn't go to Bespin to capture Han Solo. That's not like the final aim of this. It's to lure Luke Skywalker to Bespin to try and save his friends and have an altercation. He knows that if he tortures Han and Leia, Luke will feel this and he will make his way over eventually because he knows who Luke is, like father, like son. And it works. Of course it works. That ripple in the Force forces Luke to make his way and leave his training behind. He leaves Yoda on Dagobah all alone to eat soup. Not just that, it leads to a duel. It leads to him losing his hand. It leads to the famous, "No, Luke, I am your father" moment. I mean, the more you look at it, the more this one little thing really sets the scene for everything else. The original timeline uses the broken hyperdrive to really just rip Luke of everything. His friends, his physical safety, and this idealized version of who his father is. And the failure of that, I think, is also very defining for what turns Luke from a farm boy who's looking for adventure into someone who understands the weight of the universe and the consequences and what his real story is. Today, the hyperdrive doesn't spark, it purrs. Han pulls the lever.
Pull the lever, Kronk.
The Falcon hits light speed and the Bespin trap disappears before it was ever even set. And so let's watch the dominoes fall. In the original movie, the Empire occupies Bespin to catch the rebels, but in our version, they don't. They have absolutely no reason to go there. And so first of all, Lando Calrissian remains a legitimate businessman on Bespin. Without the Empire's interference, technically Cloud City remains neutral, and Lando Calrissian never really has this hero journey from scoundrel to general. And so he doesn't join the rebellion, but he's actually very important for the rebellion. Lando was the one who led the Starfighter assault on Death Star 2. Without him, the question is who would lead the Gold Squadron? Maybe Wedge Antilles? But Lando's specific inside-out knowledge of the Empire's tactics is gone. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Bespin remains neutral, but Bespin is a huge gas mine. In both the Saga Edition sourcebooks and the Wikipedia sources, it's noted that Cloud City was technically illegal or independent because it processed spin-sealed gas without being part of the Imperial Mining Guild. In the original timeline, the Empire takes over Bespin and uses the gas to fuel their Star Destroyers, but in our new timeline, Lando Calrissian can just continue selling his gas on the black market, and it never gets to fuel the Star Destroyers, which in a way helps the Imperial Navy to maintain their weapon systems more effectively. Then we have our second domino piece. Luke remains on Dagobah. Luke remains and is trained, and he also never actually loses his hand, which in a way is a win, but it also isn't. The mechanical hand that he has is almost a connection to Vader. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. And it also humanizes Vader for Luke because he sees more of himself in him. Without that physical scar, Luke might stay too pure almost, leading to a potential lack of empathy as well. Then of course we have Yoda's dying. In the original timeline, I always saw Luke leaving to save his friends as almost a motivator for Yoda to stay alive and wait for Luke to come back to finish his trials. But if Luke stays around, Yoda was already in the process of dying. Who knows, maybe he dies before he can even fully finish Luke's training and Luke doesn't become a fully fleshed out Jedi. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Either way, it'll be very different to what happened in the original movies. And then to quickly bring it to a further canon plot point, I know I'm sorry to say it, but the sequels. In The Last Jedi, Luke's fear of the dark side and of Ben Solo comes from his experiences. If he never fails at Bespin, his first failure might happen much later on, which might change the entire timeline of events that we see after the original movies as well. Then of course we can't talk about what would change if Bespin never happened if we don't include the "No, Luke, I'm your father."
No, I am your father.
It's not gonna happen. Without Bespin, Luke doesn't find out in that moment that Darth Vader is his father, even though it is in the name, but we're just going to assume that Luke never took German classes in school. And so most likely the next logical timing for this reveal to happen is in the throne room, during the Battle of Endor. In Return of the Jedi, Luke clearly goes to the Death Star specifically with the mindset to confront Darth Vader, but not in a way that's malicious, but in a way to try and save his father. He's had a year to process the news, he's talked to his sister, but in this new timeline, Luke would potentially arrive at the Death Star not with an attempt to save his father, but to avenge his father, because he still thinks that Darth Vader killed his father. Take a shot every time I say father. Luke literally goes there to assassinate him, changes the entire fight sequence. And Palpatine's favorite tactic is to use the truth as a weapon. So imagine the moment Luke is winning the fight through this righteous Jedi mindset. And just as Luke is about to strike and kill Vader, Palpatine goes, "Hold on a second, that's your dad."
You're my dad. Wookie, wookie, wookie.
Luke's world explodes in the middle of a huge life-defining fighting sequence. And now he doesn't have time to think about it. He doesn't have time to process it. He doesn't have time to talk to his friends, who at this point aren't even as much of his friends because he was away from them for like a year. And there's a high likelihood that he either just snaps and goes mental, or he snaps and joins the dark side because he feels utterly betrayed by the Jedi, and even more so by Ben. And he never had the time to find compassion for Darth Vader, so he has no real connection to him at all. Then we have our next domino piece, which is the kind of fractured nature at this point of Palpatine and Darth Vader. This one's a little bit of a mad one, but stick with me. I'm gonna make a lot of assumptions here. Please remember that this is just like a fun little video, some of my opinions, my thoughts. I'm not saying this is actually what would happen, obviously. Vader's failure to lure Luke in and have a plan to stop the rebels creates a rift between him and Palpatine. It also creates a massive power vacuum. Maybe Vader isn't this strong guy. Maybe he isn't the one that's going to help Palpatine rule the galaxy. When the Falcon vanishes, Vader literally has zero leverage to get Luke to come out of his hiding. So let's imagine that he doesn't immediately find a new snazzy way to lure Luke out, and instead he spends the next year on like a frantic chase. And at this point, Palpatine might start to see Vader's obsession more as a liability than anything else. And so the rift between Master and Apprentice grows. So what happens next? In the shadows of the Empire storyline, Prince Xizor, the leader of the Black Sun criminal syndicate, tries to replace Vader as the Emperor's right hand. And in our timeline, there's now actually more of a chance that he would succeed at that and would replace Darth Vader. I'm not saying he will, I'm just saying there's a higher chance that he might. And because Vader failed to capture the Falcon or Luke, Palpatine starts to see him as a bit of a weakling. And so he might pit the criminal underworld against him. And we could almost see like a three-way war going on. We've got the rebellion versus the Empire versus the Black Sun. Without hope of turning his son, he might lean even more into the machine. And so now maybe he doesn't just want to rule, he wants to burn the galaxy to lure Luke out of his hiding and maybe does some crazy stuff, who knows. And the final domino piece would be Jabba and Han Solo. Han isn't in carbonite. He's not, but he is still a marked man. Jabba still is on the lookout for him. Jabba really doesn't care about the rebellion, right? He just wants his credits. He wants what he is owed. And since Han is active, Jabba sends out an active fleet of bounty hunters to find him, and potentially to find him at the rebel base even. And so now the rebel base is also fighting a two-front war against both the Empire and against the underworld. So let's look at a few things that this would potentially change, starting with Boba Fett. Boba Fett was on the Falcon's trail, but when the Falcon now jumps into hyperspace, he can't find them. He's lost. He remains an active, hungry bounty hunter. And so instead of kind of being placed in Jabba the Hutt's palace for, I don't know, to look pretty, he might lead a coordinated attack against the rebels to try and flush out Han. Potentially Han, to pay off his debt, goes back into smuggling. Maybe he doesn't have the time to be a rebel general at this point. And so this splits the rebellion's resources. Do they try and protect Han and have him in the rebellion, or do they just let him do his business? Which also, by the way, would massively impact his relationship with Leia. And I'm sorry to say it, but if he were to do all of this, there's a higher chance that Chewbacca might die. In a world where Han isn't frozen, they might go after Chewie and they might try and take him as a debt collection. You never know. So those are the main dominoes that I think would definitely change if the Millennium Falcon was able to go into hyperspace and get away from everyone. I've touched a little bit there on what I think could potentially happen, but let's try and put it in a bit more of like an organized chronological order. In the first act of Return of the Jedi, we have our rescue mission, but at this point Han isn't in Kryptonite. It's not Kryptonite, it's Carbonite. That's a different franchise. Why would the Rebel Alliance waste any time on Tatooine? And so they'd focus entirely on their military buildup, but they're missing a key player, Lando Calrissian. Without Lando's intel and Han's leadership on the ground war, the Rebel Alliance maybe is less lucky than they are at times. Secondly, Luke stays on Dagobah until Yoda passes away. He doesn't have his mechanical hand, he has his own one, but he's quite isolated. At this point, he's been away from Leia and Han for a very long time, and he doesn't have as close of a connection to them as he does in the original trilogy. In a way, you could see it as Luke becoming this kind of monk Jedi that we're almost more used to seeing in the prequels, and that the Jedi maybe wanted him to become as well. And so when he finally leaves Dagobah, I don't think he's as much a friend or a brother. He's more of a weapon for the rebellion to use against the Empire more than anything else. And so he heads back to the fleet, not to reunite with his friends and his family, but to avenge his father and assassinate the Sith. The Empire completes its second Death Star, and because Han and Leia's relationship wasn't really tested at all, they probably are less happy and less stable than they are in the actual movie. Han is still looking over his shoulder for debt collectors, and Leia's probably completely lost in politics. The strike team still goes to Endor, but it looks very different. They might not even befriend the Ewoks and see them more as a nuisance, which if that does happen, they have no chance of winning. We all know the Ewoks are the true heroes of the Battle of Endor. And then Luke enters the throne room. He faces Darth Vader, but like we said, more with like an assassination mentality than anything else, which changes that entire fight. During the fight, we see Luke almost run away from Vader more to try and speak to him and hear him out and turn him back to the light, but why would he do that, right? He has no reason to, so the fight would be really, really different. And so Palpatine waits until the perfect moment to tell Luke that Darth Vader is his father and frames it in a way of the Jedi lied to you and betrayed you. And here I think there are two possibilities of what Luke would do. Luke either leaves the fight behind completely because he feels failed by both sides, or he'd potentially join the dark side. And so the Emperor might not die at all.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Don't call it a comeback!
Which then raises the question, does the rebellion even win the Battle of Endor at all? And I think they potentially still could, but if they do, the Sith more than ever are still lying in the shadows waiting to kind of pounce on everyone again. Or they don't win at all and we have a completely different world at the end of Return of the Jedi. And that for me is the full play of what would happen if the hyperdrive had just worked on Hoth. What do you think would happen? Would Luke turn to the dark side? Would he leave? Would he remain good and in the moment just manage to control all of his emotions? Would he still be as close with Han and Leia even though he's been gone for a year training? Would Yoda train him the entire year, or would he pass away too early? Would Lando still find his way to the rebellion somehow? Let me know in the comments below. I've got more of these coming, and not just about Star Wars. I'm about to do one on Lord of the Rings as well, and any other franchises that I think about at any movie. So if you have anything you want to see, again, do let me know either in the comments or go to my community page and let me know there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely evening, day, afternoon, rest of the week, weekend, whenever it is that you watch this, and I'll see you in the next universe.